Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Cruz. I will be one of your co-hosts for today. I am an Olympic swimmer from Guatemala. If you wish to hear this webinar in Spanish, please make sure to click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Si desea escuchar este seminario web en español, por favor oprima el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Welcome to our new webinar series, Underwater Chats by Pan Aquatics. It was created by and for athletes with the goal of creating a safe and brave space for crucial subjects of development and support that are not commonly discussed in the aquatic community. We have a great webinar prepared for you today, from practice to performance, reaching your highest potential every single day. We will discuss everything from the different aspects of training, both physical and mental, stages of athletic development, experiences of overcoming adversity, athlete-coach relationships, and other various approaches to help you perform at the highest level.
Hello, everybody. How you all doing? My name is Marcelo Acosta. I'm one of your co-hosts for today as well. I'm a two-time Olympic swimmer from El Salvador. And today we have an amazing panel joining us as we embark in this conversation.
Today's expert speaker is a leader in aquatic sports. Dr. Genadija Sokolovas is a widely acclaimed sports scientist and biomechanics expert who has worked with the best aquatic athletes in the world, testing and advising over 120 Olympic champions and showing how innovative technologies and mathematical models are helping push the boundaries in sport. He holds a BS and an MS in exercise physiology from the Lithuanian University of Sport and a PhD in physical education and sport from the Russian Academy of Physical Education in the Department of Swimming. Recognized as one of the most distinguished innovators in sports science, Dr. G brings a wealth of international experience, having served as Director of Physiology and Director of Sports Science for USA Swimming, High Performance Director at the US Olympic Training Center for USA Pentathlon, FINA expert at numerous FINA World Championships and developmental clinics, as well as Senior Physiologist for Global Sport Technology.
In addition, our athlete panel is truly outstanding and inspirational group of aquatic athletes who are making an impactful change in the sport. First, we got Estefania Alvarez. She is a two-time Olympic artistic swimmer from Colombia. She has been a pioneer for the sport, competing at 5 FINA World Championships and making history for Colombia by qualifying to the Olympic Games for the first time in the country's history in 2016. A esthetician by training, Estefania is currently pursuing her master's degree in project management and works at the Departmental Sports Institute in Antioquia. Next, we got Ali Atkinson. She is a 5-time Olympic artistic Olympic swimmer and a 2-time short course world record holder from Jamaica. She made history by becoming the first person of color, regardless of gender, to hold a world title in world record time. She was invested by the insignia of the Order of Distinction in the rank of commander by His Excellency, the Governor General of Jamaica, representative of Her Majesty, the Queen of England. Alia holds a BS in psychology and a minor in English from Texas A&M University. And she was awarded an honorary PhD in laws by the University of West Indies. In addition, she works towards creating awareness for swimmers in the sport for further strengthening upcoming swimmers. Next, we got Zach Harting. He is an Olympic swimmer and a FINA Short Course World Championships and World University Games gold medalist from the United States. He is currently in his 3rd season with the International Swimming League team, DC Trident, and he holds an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in engineering management from the University of Louisville. And last, but definitely not least, we got Brenda Villa. She is a 4-time Olympic water polo player and a 4-time Olympic medalist from the United States. She was named the FINA Female Water Polo Player of the Decade for the 2000s and is considered the most decorated athlete in the world of women's water polo. She holds a BA in political science from Stanford University and is the co-founder of Brenda Villa Foundation. She is committed to increasing water safety and diversity in aquatic sports. Brenda is currently a high school and a club water polo coach, an athlete representative for the USA Water Polo Board of Directors and the Pan Am Aquatic Executive Committee, and is serving on the LA28 Athlete Commission, advocating to expand resources on the resources communities and increasing diversity in aquatic sports. It is truly an honor to have you all with us today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope our spectators can learn a lot from you guys. Thank you.
Marcelo, thank you so much for such wonderful introductions, and a big welcome to our outstanding panel. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get started, let me say briefly how the webinar will unfold. First, Dr. Sokolovas will talk to us about his experiences and insight into today's topic via a pre-recorded video. Unfortunately, he was unable to join us live, but we very much appreciate his opening remarks for this event. Then we will open up the conversation with our panel. After that, we will open up for questions from the audience. Please make sure to enter your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen at any point during this webinar. We will try to address as many as we can, and Marcelo and I will moderate. At the end, we will deliver some closing remarks. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. We will now watch a video with Dr. Sokolovas' opening remarks. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gennady Sokolovas. Most of swimming coaches around the world call me Dr. G. I'm working at Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, as well as doing many coaches education clinics on behalf of FINA, USA Swimming, American Swim Coaches Conference, and some other organizations as well. And we're also working with individual swimmers and coaches, teams that coming to Olympic Training Center. Also, I'm visiting them regularly, and we're doing many different research projects. Thank you to Valerie and your staff with Underwater Chats. Happy to deliver a talk to you guys today, explaining what can be done to improve your performances on a daily basis, from practice to performances. And there are a variety of things can be done. Obviously, presentation is relatively short today. That's why I will not be able to cover everything that is important, but at least do some steps and give you some ideas what can be done in practices, as well as long-term in practices. That's also important. Let's share my presentation with you, and we'll start talking about different things that you can do differently in practices. So first, a little bit about our company. It's called Global Sport Technology. You see the website and email addresses on the screen. So what we're doing biomechanical research, and I'll show you some research data that we have using swim power test, also physiological tests and analysis, such as atlas recovery, identifying anaerobic thresholds, energy zones, and many other things. Clinics for swim teams and coaches. We're developing vertical swim trainers. As you see here on the screen, swimmer is working on a vertical swim trainer. I will not go into specific details of that just because of short time, but you can go on FINA website and look some of my presentations under learning platform for coaches. And it's good for swimmers as well. We're developing different software, such as eCoach and peak performance software for training design. We also developed software or database, which is a variety of software and database. It's called Talent ID and Development. I'll talk briefly about that today. We're developing new Learn to Swim program because it's important to start teaching kids correct swimming technique. Most of Learn to Swim programs are incorrect teaching, and they are not changing too much in the last 30 to 40 years. We know much more about swimming technique now, but unfortunately, Learn to Swim programs are always a little bit delaying, and they're not delivering the best technique for kids as it's supposed to be. That's why we need to do a lot of work to change technique later on. And we're doing online and classroom presentations as well, such as I'm doing right now for you. So what you can do to reach highest potential? Obviously, as I told, there are a variety of different things. Improving swimming technique on daily basis. You should also approach long-term to that. Science-based long-term development is extremely important to swimmers, such as talent ID and development database that we developed, which has a lot of different tools that can be used on daily basis. Optimize your training in season, in week, in day, every day. Improve recovery after practices. That will help you to improve more during the season. And optimize nutrition, which is also important for training and recovery. And we'll touch probably the first two topics a little bit, as the whole presentation is very short, just to explain you, give you some ideas for your training. So let's talk about swimming technique a little bit. We'll not touch all the strokes because it's we have multiple presentations for each stroke. I will just talk a little bit about underwater kicking, which is very important for many strokes. So in the last 15 years, when we're doing biomechanical research, we tested already more than 15,000 swimmers from 130 countries. Some of you might be tested also at the World Championships by us, where we're doing the project with FINA, testing developing countries. We tested already more than 80 Olympic champions, including 7 new Olympic champions in Tokyo, from Tokyo, that we worked with, and they won gold medals, and more than 100 Olympic medalists. Based on our research, we already developed hundreds of drills to improve swimming technique, including so-called super drills, which help to improve swimming technique faster. And many clubs and individual swimmers are taking advantages of our services regularly. Now let's talk about a little bit longer development of athletes, which is also important to do that regularly, even on daily basis. That's why we developed so-called talent ID and development database for swimmers. And many swimmers, swim teams and federations already using this talent ID database, which is online. We know that we're losing many swimmers not reaching their full potential when they train. So that's why it's important to know how to develop swimmers correctly. And this database helps to understand a little bit better long-term development. So benefits of talent ID and development database includes variety of different tools or software, which is in this database, such as windows of performance progression for best swimmers in history in each event, online tools to analyze and track swimmers' performances, growth, testing results, and workload volumes, an interactive tool to evaluate individual performance progression with recommended times for every age, analysis of relative endurance with individual recommendations for training. I'll explain that, what relative endurance means. Long-term training volumes models for sprinters, middle distance swimmers for both genders, interactive tool to collect swimming and dryland workload volumes on a weekly basis, analysis of energy zones based on heart rate and time trials. Also, it has cost of performance calculator. For example, how much it costs for you to reach this performance, how much you train, how much intensity you're doing. Evaluation of biological maturation based on height changes. If your height changes faster or slower, you are in different stages of biological maturation. Long-term training design based on sensitive periods of development. And obviously, coaches and swimmers education based on talent ID database. So this is one of example. Software collects also weekly volumes of training of swimmers. How much do you train to become good or whatever time you have right now? Are you training a lot and you're reaching the not as good time, or you're training relatively lower volumes, but you're doing really good and have good times? So that's why this information is important to collect and analyze what average weekly volume training you're doing in various energy zones and on land as well. And it also will give understanding better how it improves and what's the cost of the performance. Height changes are important as well, because in order to train correctly, you need to select right training volumes on daily basis. How much aerobic, how much anaerobic, how much sprint, how much on land. And software will tell you what stage of biological maturation you are based on your height change, and then adjust your training volumes, how much you need to swim, and how intense, how much land training. Are you before biological maturation, during, or post biological maturation? And based on the height change, the red line over here, software will analyze in every individual athlete biological maturation. And then, as I told, adjust long-term training volumes, which are here, the models, but models can be adjustable. You can do a little bit more or a little bit less, earlier or later, reach higher volumes models. Models are based on sensitive periods of development, as well as of training history of top swimmers in the world. And so then in this case, you will know what volume you need to hit, what intensity, how much dryland training you need to do every year, and then that translates to your daily and weekly training as well, how much you need to train and when you need to reach the higher volumes. And it's at different times depending on your sensitive periods of development. Other good tool that is used, very useful, is energy zones. We know that energy zones can be defined as heart rates or speed, and database allows to do both in this case. So if you're doing step tests, like in this case, 8 times 100, descending step test, when you're doing easy swim at the first 100 and maximum last 100, you're checking your heart rates, entering results in a database, and software will calculate you what are your energy zones. You see right here is the table with energy zones and times in different sets for swimmers based on their heart rates and velocity curve. What time you're swimming and what your heart rates. So this is easy use tool, very applicable for every swimmer individually, and can be used also on daily basis. There are more tools in this database. Unfortunately, because of short presentation, we cannot don't have just time to explain everything. I just want to explain maybe the last tool today, which is relative endurance. If you look at your ratio between times, let's say over 200 and 100, that will show your relative endurance, how much speed, how much endurance you have. And there are optimal ratios for different events. For example, if male swimmer swims 200 freestyle, his ratio between 200 and 100, optimal goal ratio, is 2.167. That's an average ratio for the top swimmers in the world in this event. The younger swimmers, ratios can be a little bit lower. And software calculates your ratio after you're entering your best results and tells what you need to do in training. Do you need to improve, increase ratio? Like in this case, swimmer has 2.133, which is lower than optimal 2.167. Swimmer needs improve a little bit more power. And you see software generates recommendations in swimming and on land, what kind of training needs to be done on daily basis in order to improve. Anyway, I'm finishing over here. Unfortunately, I'm pre-recording my presentation, cannot be live with you today, but I'm happy to answer questions you have over emails. Valerie has my email address, so you can always email me and I'm happy to answer the questions. Good luck for you and thank you for your attention.
We want to thank Dr. Sokolovas for sharing with us his knowledge and experience. Now we would like to open the conversation with our entire panel.
But before we get into our chat, we would like to congratulate Alia and Estefania for their recent retirement from their respective sports. You have both made a significant impact in your disciplines, not only in Jamaica or Colombia, but truly in the entire world. We hope many young aquatic athletes follow your footsteps and inspiring generations to come. So congratulations, guys. Congratulations to you both. How is retirement so far? Do you miss anything at all? And what are some new things that you've been doing?
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Mhm.
And congratulations, Stephania. And nice to see you again, Zach and Brenda. For me, it's basically just trying to get into a routine. Swimming for this long, especially with academics, it's really been a schedule ever since I was about 4. So for me, it's trying to find a new schedule, find a new regime where I can still be effective and efficient, but get stuff done in my day as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm assuming you have a bunch of time right now to kill, and you didn't even know what to do, probably.
Try and fill the days.
Try to fill it in. What about you, Stefania? Retirement
Thank you,
so far so good?
Marcelo and Valerie and Alia. Congratulations too. I think it's not an easy decision for me. I was very proud of the goals that I achieved with my work team, and that gives me a peace of mind. Everything that I was able to achieve for the artistic swimming for my sake of my country. And also I think it was very important to be able to train and pursue my professional career at the same time.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys have done an unbelievable job, and really congratulations to you both, because really you both have done history, and your names will never be forgotten. So thank you for what you have given to the sport. Really appreciate it.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, and welcome to the retired club. You'll love it. Yeah, and for all of our panelists, we know each and every one of you are involved in different aquatic disciplines. Estefania competed in artistic swimming, Brenda in water polo, and even though Alia and Zach were both swimmers, they raced in different strokes and distances. So can each of you share in your individual events, what are things you all look or looked for or try to achieve every single day in practice to call it a successful one?
I think that each training, what I tried to think was that I try my best in each repetition, then in the competition, I would be easier for me.
Absolutely. Zach, what about you?
When I go to practice, I'm looking to practice the things that I'm going to be doing in the middle of a race. For example, my race is 4 laps of butterfly, and my breathing pattern, or what my tempo, or how many kicks I'm taking off the wall, and kind of when I go to my legs, like all of those things is very specific for each 50. And so when I go through practice and I'm doing a pace set of 1 easy and 2 fast a couple of times, like I'll break it up and do like, okay, this chunk, the first one's easy, and then these first 2 that are fast, I'll take that like the first and the second 50 of the race. And then the next round I'll do the second and third 50, then the third and fourth. And so I'll break it up. So I'm always rehearsing the minute details that I'll need in the middle of a race, so that when it comes to race time, I'm not worried about like, oh, like I don't know how to do this many kicks and then not breathe off that last wall. It's like, I've done that a billion times at practice. So what's one in the middle of a race?
Yeah, so I mean, I hear a lot about details here. So you're not really just focus on trying to go as hard as you could or as fast as you could, but really just details, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things I learned my freshman year, was the coaches at U of L they don't care what time you go at practice. They're more cared about how you go that time. So like if you go, we'll just keep numbers easy. If you went a minute, push off the wall, went straight to the surface, and then took a billion strokes on every lap, that's not as good as if you push off the wall, did a couple of underwater kicks, and then took like 10 strokes a lap. So then it became of how I did what I was doing at practice, not necessarily just the time. The time piece was still kind of important, but it was more focus was on the how. And then the time piece came naturally.
I see. Brenda, what about you? Do you remember what are the minor details that you try to practice in order to call a successful practice?
Yeah, like Estefania mentioned earlier, it's your best effort in all aspects that you're training in. Of course, I'm in a team sport, and it's not just about what the individual is doing, it's about how you're connecting and practicing with others. So it's also about, a small detail like, hey, can I make a better pass to a teammate? How do I set others up? and just making sure that there's a great line of communication between you and your teammates. And in practice, we're always competing against each other, right? Because we don't have other teams to compete against. So sometimes in that competitive aspect, the camaraderie and you forget they're your teammate because you're competing. So you've got to always bring it back and think about, yes, we're competing now, but we're on the same team. How do we make each other better, or give feedback in that instant, right? Like, hey, I beat you on this drive because you didn't do this. And it's hard to hear sometimes because you're competing, but that's how, as a team, you're going to get better. So it's, in our sport, it's how do I get better? And then how do I make my team better?
Yeah. So hearing, keep your teammates accountable, but at the same time, don't be last. Whatever you do, don't be last. Alia, what about you? What are some of those details that you try to work on in practice in order to, just be a great practice?
I think for me, as I got older in the sport, I tried to focus on things that I could control. So a lot of the times I may not be having a great day. Practices may seem longer than it is. Or just feel frustrated or mentally not checked in. But I try to find one thing to work on, whether it's longer walls, breathing patterns. Either I do fly today and just get it, or focus more on the breaststroke or the backstrokes. But I like to change it around and keep it exciting. But for a successful practice, it will definitely be achieving that one thing that I set out to do before practice, whatever it may be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then I see. And then for my next question, this actually goes for Zach. And, I told you, Zach, and I saw Zach this morning in practice, and I told you how to do a good one for you. This is something that I wanted to know since I met you. And then, I know you always bring such a great attitude to practice, no matter if it's really 6, 5, or 4 in the morning. However, there must have been some days in which it was hard for you to even get out of bed, and you could have easily not care about what kind of attitude you bring to practice. How have you been able to stay consistent with your attitude, even on the tough days? And was it at any point in your career, was at any point fake? That smile was fake or anything was fake?
Oh, that's a good one. No, so when I wake up in the morning, I'm only in the house for 10, 15 minutes and then I'm leaving. I don't sit and have breakfast and dilly-dally. I'm a firm believer that if it's before 6 a.m., every minute of sleep counts. So I set my alarm as late as I can. In our house, we didn't really talk to each other until we were at the pool. Everyone was just operating, we hand signs almost, we just knew we'd look at each other and be like, all right, it's time to go. And we'd all leave together. So that was kind of a cool thing. And then I would still feel groggy and grumpy until I got on deck, and then I'd change, and then the atmosphere of the rest of the team kind of was okay, well, it's time to practice now. And then I remember there was one time where I was just I was really tired, and then you came into my lane and started messing with me. And I was almost gonna be dude, that's enough. And then I was you know what, I'll mess with him back. So there was a couple of times I've just kind of fed off of yours or somebody else's energy. But no, nothing has ever been fake. It just kind of it was just a little bit delayed and needed a little bit of waking up and kind of bringing that energy. But no, that's something I'm struggling with a little bit more now as all these little things are going on in our season, with worlds getting jumbled and moved around and then put back. So still trying to figure that piece out. But when I still go to practice, I'm here to work on this, and I'm here to work on this, and I'm here to work on this, and we're gonna have some fun and mess around with some people while I do it.
Yeah, there is a part, guys, there is a part in the warm up that is called 444, which basically is just a 400, 401s, and 450s. And then a 400, we just go, and then during the 401s, Zach and I would just jump on top of each other and start pulling each other's ankles and start fighting, trying to see who reached the wall first. And, it's just, and everybody else is just grumpy. And there's these two guys fighting in the pool super early. So, it's something. I wonder
what the coaches thought about that, because there was a few times we were basically fighting. It's just get up on the cheese on the lane line, and
we got scratched a few times in there. Yeah, we got a few scratch, but hey, those are great memories that I will never forget.
They were,
so thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
You gotta have fun, it's long days. But everyone in this panel really reached a very high level in their athletic careers. And at that point, you all understand and deal with the fact that not every practice will be great. And this has been mentioned already. And I know we all remember those days. Like I still vividly remember those days. And in those days where you don't perform at your absolute best, and sometimes, it can result in frustration and setbacks. How do you become a better athlete even on those bad days? How or where can you find that 1% improvement even when your body is not feeling great? Maybe Brenda, you can start us off.
Something that Alia mentioned earlier, just, there's one thing you could focus on, right? Like even in the moment in a game, like I was a scorer, a shooter, but if I was having an off day, it's like, okay, can I focus on shot blocking, on another technical aspect of the game that's going to help my team and it'll get me back into it. And I think it's really important, and I'm really lucky as, team sport, you have your teammates. Like if I'm off, like I know that 12 other women are there and they're going to be on. So then for me, I would get that energy and be like, who's on today? I'm going to make them, score 5 more goals because I'm going to create for them. And then in practice, you have a bad practice or the coach is on you, or it's your fault, you lost that scrimmage, then, it's self-reflection, it's checking in with teammates, or maybe even talking to the coach, like, hey, what were you seeing? I was really trying to do this, but it wasn't happening. And just, you have to check it that night. And then the next day it's a new day. And it's really hard because I think as elite athletes, we dwell, and there's this, not perfectionism, but you always want to be on, you always want to get it right. But I think we find a way, it's really important to find a way to just kind of check it, like, okay, it's done. There's nothing I can do about it. I've reflected, I need to move on.
I see, absolutely. And then what about you, Alia? I mean, like again, in those tough days, how do you find the 1%? Like 1% improvement when your body is completely like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
No, I think what Brenda said was spot on, especially the part where you let it go after that day.
Yeah.
If you had a bad practice or you're just having a bad day, it's the ability to let it go. Do the best that you can on that day. And then after that, reset for the night and start again the next day. Because a lot of us, we use that same energy and we carry it along, especially if you have a bad Monday, it carries along for the rest of the week. And on the flip side, if you have a good one, you carry it along for the rest of the week.
Yes.
But what I've seen with a lot of younger athletes, especially, if they have a good day on Monday, they expect to have an even greater day on Tuesday. And when that doesn't happen, it's a huge letdown.
Yeah.
But I was better yesterday, but I was doing this. It's being content in the moment and being grateful for the little opportunities that help you to become a stronger athlete and a stronger person. But each day you wake up, it's a new day. So I think that's where we get that 1%. When you like, all right, what will be the significant part of today? What is it? And it's not going to come. You have to create it. So it's having that mentality and the strength to go after it.
Yeah, and I love what you just said about like just being grateful by having the opportunity. Just be grateful. Be grateful that you have the pool. Be grateful that you can train. Be grateful that you can get better. What about you, Stefania? How do you find that 1% in practice when the days are very tough, when you're having a very tough day?
I agree with Brenda and Alia, and I believe that the mind plays a very important role when it comes to overcoming bad days. And we all have bad thoughts, but continue is what makes the difference. And also, I think the support of my family and close friends and my team when we have difficult days.
Yeah. What about you, Zach? What is your 1%?
Yeah. So our coach has told us, like, if you're struggling, then you should be the one cheering the loudest and cheering on your teammates. And so I was really interested to see what Brenda was going to say. And I would basically just say the same thing that she did, is like, if you're off, is like, you should be supporting the other people even more. Not saying that, like, if you're having the best practice of your life, that you don't have to support anybody. It's like, it's just all the more reason that that's something that you can go to, and like, you can be there for your teammates. And in doing so, will probably make your last practice be better. And then on top of that, I would say, like, if I'm struggling to get to the wall at practice, and it's like, then I know that that's a situation where I can be rehearsing things that will be very similar to the end of the race. for me. So then I can make sure that like, okay, well, at least my technique is what I want it to be the last 10 yards when I'm falling apart, or at least this can be okay, or that can be okay. The time might not be there at all, but at least the technique and foundation will be there.
Okay, I see. No, that's awesome. And then, there is this quote that I found. Well, I mean, I didn't really found it. I mean, like I heard it for the past 4 or 5 years, really. And Zach knows this actually. That is actually very fitting to a conversation today. And my coach, Arthur always says, it's not a feeling, it's a decision. Every decision that we make in practice has a significant impact on our development and personal growth, whether it's in the pool, whether it's outside the pool, like in real life. So I would like to know, how do you all personally interpret this quote, and does it resonate with your journey at all? What about, let's go with Brenda.
I'm processing and like thinking about like, okay, decisions, and can you repeat the quote? But
A lot there, yeah.
no, it just made me think about, like, for us, penalty shots in our game, and just how often you have to practice them so that when you're in that moment, you have to perform. And if you don't perform, you have to live with it, right? So we have to live with the decisions that are made, and we have to be okay with them. But it comes from practice and putting yourself in that moment. So whatever decision you make, like whatever shot you take, if it goes in, you're like, okay, great. But if it doesn't, you're like, okay, I've got to live with that. So as I was processing the quote and thinking about it, that's what popped into my head. But I'm thinking, there are things that I know that now I coach. So with my younger players, I make them take one last shot. Whatever happens, you live with it. And everyone always wants one more attempt, right? And it's like, no, you have to get used to being in that moment and being okay with it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And I didn't train like that when I was a 10 and 14 under, right? But that's how I trained at the higher levels. And it's so important because you have to just be okay with it, right? You gave your best effort, and that's it.
Absolutely. Like, again, like I've been hearing this quote for the past 5 years, and then it just resonates so well throughout my career. And again, I just wanted to know what you guys think. Actually, I want to know what Zach thinks about this quote, since him and I will be listening to it for the past few years.
Yeah, so for me, like it was like I didn't believe it until like the time came, and there's a few times where I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go, and it's like I'm just gonna go rip the crap out of this race. And I didn't feel good when I did it. I certainly didn't feel good after.
Yeah.
But this is like I'm not gonna lose. There's no way that this clown next to me is gonna beat me. And it's just like, I'm just gonna go. And it didn't matter what I did the day before in terms of like training or weights. It didn't matter how tired I was. It didn't matter if I slept or what I ate the night before. It's like right here, right now, like I'm going out. And like when it was like that deep decision that like it was like almost like the root of like your heart and your soul, and like you like just knew that this was where you were going. It's like those were my best races. And so it's like it's hard. You can't just be like sitting in the chair and be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going fast. Like you can, but it's not like that's not necessarily the decision that I think that Arthur was talking about when he gave us that quote. He's taking us like it's a very deep personal connection where there's no doubt, there's no wavering. It's just like you're going and nothing can stop you because you're all the way up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then like, did you tell yourself that like the day of the 2 on the fly Olympic trials, do you actually tell yourself like it's done today, I'm gonna be an Olympian? Like I already made my mind, or like already made up my mind, I made the decision, today I'm gonna become an Olympian? Do you actually like said that to yourself, or like you just went into the race?
No, I was going back and forth on it the day of, really right until like 3 minutes. No, I'm right before I left for the call room. I was like, I could be an Olympian in like 20 minutes by the time I get through the ready room, or I could not be. It's like my life could change. Like either way, the race is over in 20 minutes from now. It's like no matter what. And it's like all these things that could happen. And when I left, I told my coach, I look back, I'm like, next time you see me, I'm going to be a champion because I was going there to win, and I wasn't necessarily going there to make the team. It just happened that if you won, then you get to go to the Olympics. So I was going there to win, and I told him, next time you see me, I'm going to be an Olympian. And it was just like, no more waverings. Like, that's where we're going. But there have also been times where like I knew that that decision point was coming. Sometimes like when I'm putting on my suit, sometimes like when I get to the pool, sometimes the drive to the pool or the day before, or it comes at different times. And then there's been times that I've also failed that decision. I'm like, I'm not going fast. And then I did not. So it was both ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And definitely what you're saying about that mentality, I think that sets you up right from day one. Like exactly what you said, like driving to the pool. What attitude are you going to bring? What are your goals? You've worked this hard, make it count, right? And I think this ties a lot to how many people don't realize how much work goes into becoming an elite athlete. A lot of the time, or really all of the time, you need to do what no one else is willing to do in practice in order to reach that next level. And I want to know, like, can you guys tell us a little bit about how this manifested in your experience? What did you do to get to the absolute top level of your sport? Did you give that extra effort to specific areas of your training? And what do you advise young athletes to aspire to and do in terms of like actionable steps that they can do to achieve what you did? Maybe you can start with Alia.
Yeah, that's a great question. And funny enough, it ties into the quote from before, because if I look back on my career, the best times, the NCAA championships, the first time I made Olympic finals, my first world record, it's always, the feeling just went out the door. It was a decision, because my feelings always changes. Some days I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it. And other days I'm like, I'm not feeling so great. What's going to happen? And I start putting in the ifs in the conversation. But my best races were the ones where I was fully mentally ready. And the feeling was just, I'm going to give it my all. Like, this is the decision. What's going to happen is going to happen. I'm going to go and give it. And it's a really nice place to be. You're at peace in a sense of whatever happens, you're just going to give it your all. And it takes definitely a matured athlete. It takes experience, but it also takes a lot of honesty. Talking with your friends, talking with your teammates, your parents, your coaches, and telling them, I'm really nervous about this, and letting them know what is the best way to help you. Growing up, I was with a lot of age group swimmers, and they didn't know how to communicate to their teammates and their coaches. So what their teammates thought were help them, like cheering for a race or doing this, was actually hurting them. And they realized in order to bring out the best athletes in themselves, they needed to communicate with them about what helps them and what does not. And once you get that out of the way, you have all the green arrows going, you have all the positivity, and you start to feel like this is a place you want to be, and that feeling just goes away, and you're just happy where you are. So I would say the best thing to do is communication with your parents, coaches, and definitely yourself. Like, why am I nervous? What am I nervous about? And how can I get around it?
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. How about let's go with Stefania. What do you think about it?
Well, I think for me it was very important to think about correcting one time at a time. And sometimes it happened to me that I tried to think of everything that I blocked me. So I had my coach, and she said, you have to do it, but it's your decision if you want to do with a great attitude or a bad attitude. And now I can do all the results that the phrases have to me.
I see. And then what about you, Brenda? What extra work do you do? I mean, like to get to the absolute like top level? Because again, I mean, like your journey, it's also very long. And then I just want to know, like, really, like, how were you able to, like, what some of the things that you did, right, to reach that?
Alia, like support system, right? Like it's really important to communicate. And I think for me, from a young age, I was able to communicate to my parents, people around me, that I had these big dreams. And that would mean, sacrificing some family time, some friend time, because I needed to make these difficult choices. Like I have to go to this tournament, I have to do this training. So I was fortunate that from like maybe age 12, right, I was identified as like a top athlete in my age bracket. So that helped me communicate to my parents, like, this is what I'm doing, support me. And I was lucky that my parents said yes to everything. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's training on your own, especially for team sports. Like, you can't just pick up and play water polo game on your own, right? So it's like, am I conditioning on my own? Am I doing weights on my own? And, you know, this is what, 20 plus years ago, I played on a boys high school team, and the coach didn't let me lift with the boys team because I'd be a distraction, right? My brother was on the team. I don't know how I would have been a distraction, but, you know, it's, you know, things where you have to do things on your own.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. They might not be popular decisions. Like, your friends may be like, later. And you're like, okay, I'll see you later. I have to train.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, we don't have professional sports in the US. So at a time when I was finished with college, like, I had to go overseas and play, you know, professional. And I see professionally use that term very lightly. Like, it's not like there's a lot of money to be made, right? It's just, I need to play games to stay competitive if I want to continue to be on this elite level. So there's just a lot of tough choices to make, and you have to be okay with them, and you communicate with everyone. And if they support you, they stay in your circle. And if they don't, you say bye.
Too bad. Absolutely. And, you know, like, I hear it's a choice. It's not a sacrifice. Really, it's a choice. You don't sacrifice anything, right? You're enjoying this journey and you're doing it your way and you're happy. And I mean, that's just awesome. That's just awesome. I mean, I've been following your journey so far, Brenda. And I mean, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So thank you for everything you've done for the sport. And, you know, this next question is actually for everybody. And then we have 3 retired athletes, and Zach is currently active. However, again, this goes for all of you. What is or will be your legacy? Whether it's in or out of the water, what will be, or what will you want to be remembered for? Let's go with Alia first.
I believe my legacy is a girl from a small country that persevered and fought. Because when I look back, there's going to be a lot more downs than there are ups. A lot more what ifs, a lot more second, third, ace, not making to finals than there is a first. And when I look back, it's not allowing those times to defeat you. It's being able to get back up and try again and try again and try again until you reach, or you feel like you reach where you should be. So I think that's my legacy. I think throughout my career, I've shown that, just the perseverance and fighting until I felt content in a place where I could retire. So yeah, I think that's what I want my legacy to be.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. What about you, Stefania? What do you think is your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for?
I think my legacy was to have been an inspiration for many athletes to dream higher and think that nothing is possible, because for my country, it was the first time to be in Olympic Games in artistic swimming. And I think that opened many clothes for them.
I see. What about you, Zach? What's your legacy, man? Tell me.
I don't know, that I think everyone else's answers are so good. If I had to take a stab at this though, I was the kid with a dream who made it a reality and didn't let anybody else tell them that that's not how it works, or that's not the chance of that happening, or almost 0 to none, or whatever, or you got to race Michael Phelps to do it, or whatever. But I kept going, and I did it, and I did it before, and I just followed my own path and basically did whatever I wanted. If I wanted to drink out of a gas can or do something crazy, I did, and no one could stop me, and I did it my way.
For the record, he did. He did drink from a gas can. But you know, he did it your way and you enjoyed it, right? You enjoyed it. Yeah, no, thank you, Zach. What about you, Brenda? What is your legacy?
I think like breaking a mold. I'm a 5'4" Latina that, you know, was captain of Team USA for 2 Olympics. And that's why I'm also still active in the sport. I'm on the board of directors because I want to see more diversity. So for me, it's, you don't have to fit a certain mold, and can we get our sport to be more inclusive and diverse?
Yeah, I mean, each one of you have done an incredible job in your sports. And I mean, I really hope every single little kid that is watching this right now follow your footsteps and becomes great champions as well.
Yes, I fully second what Marcella just said. And to preface, like, you all are incredible. You broke barriers in your sport, in your countries. So we all thank you for that, because we all looked up to you as little kids and became the athletes we became because of you. So thank you for that. And that was absolutely amazing. I can't believe the time has gone by so quickly. We truly thank our special guests for joining us today. And now to finish up, we will have a quick Q&A section. So please, for everyone in our audience, submit your questions through the Q&A function on Zoom, and we will go through as many as possible.
Okay. And then let's see, to start us off, I have a question for Brenda. What are some recommendations you will give to a collegiate or professional athlete who is about to retire from the sport? What are some transferable skills that they can use going into a real world?
I think, I mean, collaboration is something that I think most employers look for, someone that could be in a room and be a team player. So don't sell yourself short. Like, make sure that you are describing all these skills that you learned in sports. Like, you can collaborate, you can lead. So yeah, even now for me, right, as a retired athlete in different transitions, it's like, how do you go back to that lived experience of being an elite athlete? And some of it is like, we work really well under pressure, right? And I've come across a lot of colleagues that don't always have those skills, right? There's the breakdown where it's like, no, I love that rush, right? So I think, how do we make sure we talk about the skills we learn in the pool that'll help us, you know, in the workforce?
For sure. And this is for anyone who wants to answer. How do you put max effort into training when you've had a terrible day and don't really feel like putting that much effort into it?
I guess I would say I look for, I would take it one part at a time. I'd take warm up and see if I could knock off the cobwebs. Then I'd do whatever part's coming next, and I'd just look for something to excel in. You can kind of start small and then kind of snowball it down from there, I guess, would be, because that's hard. That's part of the sport, though, is like, if you're going back for more, then you know you're about to go get another butt whooping. So just find some place that you know that you can excel, and then break through that barrier from there.
Okay, perfect. And then I also got right here, what would you tell to your younger self from, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago, knowing everything that he or she will go through in the future? What would you tell to that little kid, right? I mean, would you say like, is like everything will be okay? Do you have some actual advices?
Yeah, I think for me, I was very introverted growing up. So I think for me, I would say it's okay to communicate. You have value in your voice. You have value with who you are. And I think it's at a younger age, it's definitely good to have that confidence, because that confidence shows in the water and whatever sport you're doing. When you get up on the block, when you get up in front of a crowd, when you get up ready for a competition, you'll feel that confidence. And if you don't believe it, you won't see it in the pool. So yeah, I would say believe in the confidence and find ways to gain that confidence and maintain it.
I see.
For sure. And then the next question is for Brenda. What are some recommendations you would give to a college or professional athlete who is about to retire from the sport? What are some transferable skills that they can use into the real world?
I think we're already asked.
Oh, really? So sorry. Sorry. Then we have a question for Ali, actually. As a breaststroker, what was your strategy in the pull out to build momentum and accelerate the stroke into the breakout? Is there a rule that tells you until where you can reach, or how did you manage that?
So luckily enough, breaststroke, you're good to go. So you can pass the 15 as long as you do one pull out and one kick and one breaststroke kick, one fly kick and one breaststroke kick. Besides that, you can hold the glide for as long as you can. I've seen people go at least 20 yards. But for me, I always wanted to generate enough power off the walls. So I made sure I had really close. I made sure I got really close to the wall. made sure the knees reach right up beside my chest. So I'm really small on the ball, so I can use that spring to push off. And once you get a nice angle, you'll see how far you go, just like a torpedo in the water. So I definitely worked a lot in my underwaters, gaining the momentum off the walls, getting that crunch position, and keeping a nice tight streamline. I think those are the three things that actually worked for me, and jumps on land for cardio stuff and trying to reach different heights and just working on that bounce.
Yeah.
Those are some things that helped as well outside of the water.
I see. Perfect. And then this next question is, what is I mean, this actually can be for Zach or anybody. I think I'll start with Zach. What is your everyday ritual going into practice? Does it change going into competition? Or if so, in what ways?
Not at all. When I wake up in the morning, I had to change it. I recently got a puppy, so now I have to wake up instead of 15 minutes. Now I have to wake up 25 minutes, so I have time to let the dog out before.
Oh no.
But I eat 1 packet of oatmeal, 1 or 2, depending on how hungry I am. I eat it on the way to practice, and then I change real quick, do some arm swings as like a shoulder preventative injury prevention, and then get in the water and go about my practice. When I'm at a meet, I do the exact same thing. I'll take oatmeal with me if I know I'm like not going to be at a hotel that has oatmeal, or if they don't have breakfast, or if I'm leaving before breakfast opens. That way, because like if I train and if I know I can be successful at practice on my oatmeal, then I know when I go to race, like I don't have to worry about if that's going to, am I going to be okay on eggs? Like, I don't know. I'm good on oatmeal, so I'll worry about lunch later, but I keep doing the same thing.
And before we go, just what kind of oatmeal do you eat, Zach? I mean, just curious.
The best one is the dinosaur eggs. The next best one is the maple, and then the apples. But if you're making 2, it's mix and match combined. They're all delicious.
Yeah, just curious. That's all. I think your audience was curious too.
Great tips on aquatic sports and oatmeal. There you have it. So thank you so much to our incredible panelists, Dr. G, Alia, Brenda, Stefania, and Zach. This was absolutely fabulous. And I want to thank Marcelo for great moderation, and thank our audience for staying with us throughout the webinar. There was absolutely great engagement. And we still do have a lot of questions in the chat. So if you want to get them answered at a later time, please reach out to us via Facebook or Instagram through the Pan Am Aquatics pages, and we will definitely connect with you. And I invite our audience to join us in next month's webinar, Enjoying the Journey, Overcoming Hardships, and Finding the Joy in Aquatic Sports. We hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much, and goodbye, everyone.